Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Tasty Trails Travel Pod. Today is a very special episode of the podcast. We are celebrating 1 whole year of exploring the world through food. When I first started this journey, I hoped to create a space where we could uncover the deep connections between food, culture, and history, and thanks to you, this show has become more than I ever imagined. I've had the privilege of speaking to incredible guests from all over the world, and I can't wait to keep going. I have big plans coming up for this next year, so make sure to stay tuned so you don't miss a thing. A huge thank you to the amazing guests that have come on and shared their food, their stories, and their cultures. And thank you so much to you for listening and being a huge part of why this podcast is so great. To celebrate this milestone and say thank you, I am partnering with our guest today for a free giveaway. So make sure to stay till the end for more details on how you can win yourself some delicious New York style bagels. Today, I'm sitting down with the owner of Sheikob's Bagels in Buenos Aires. If you've ever lived abroad, you know how certain foods can feel like home. And I don't want to speak for everyone from the U.S., but I know for me and for a lot of people that I have met abroad, finding a decent bagel is both rare and extremely coveted. And that's where Sheikob's comes in. But even if there isn't that element of nostalgia, you can't argue with how freaking good they are. We're talking about the art of the great bagel, where it comes from, the challenges of recreating a beloved food in a new country, and what it means to bring a taste of home to an entirely different culture. So let's go. Hey, Jake, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you very much for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and what you do?
Sure. My name is Jake Eichenbaum-Pikser. I'm originally from New York City. I was born in Washington Heights and grew up most of my life on the Upper West Side. I'm now living in Argentina. I've been in Argentina for almost 12 years at this point, and I have a bagel shop in Palermo, Buenos Aires, called Sheikob's Bagels.
Amazing. And so how did you get into bagel making?
Well, when I moved down here, this was to end of 2013, the food scene in Buenos Aires was lacking diversity, let's say. There was very little in the way of diversity, and there were no bagels. I mean, that's kind of an unreasonable criticism, because why would there be bagels here? But there were no bagels here. The bagels that were here were terrible. It was the kind of thing that you would maybe see on a fancy brunch menu. At a place in Palermo, they'd have a bagel with salmon on the menu, but it would just be like a hamburger bun in the shape of a bagel. And as a New York Jew, not having access to a halfway decent bagel was a problem for me. And so I sort of just started researching online and trying to make them at home for my own consumption. Just a lot of trial and error. I met a very talented bread baker who gave me sort of some basic concept tips around how to use pre-ferments and the effects of different kinds of pre-ferments on a dough, slow fermentation, those kinds of things. And slowly but surely, I arrived at a bagel that I really liked. Meanwhile, I was not really planning for it to be a business. It was really kind of just to like fill time and make bagels for myself. And then once I got to a bagel that I really liked, I put up a Facebook page. Like, I made a logo and put up a Facebook page sort of saying, like, are you an expat in Argentina who misses bagels? Hit me up. I'll make a dozen for you. And again, at this point, it was really not projecting it, really turning into a business. I was sort of kind of just doing it for fun. And that's how it initially started. From there, the kind of turning point was when I met a couple, an Argentine man and an English woman who had a business called Cannoli de Palermo. And what they did is they did wholesale Italian pastry to a few different specialty coffee shops. And then once a week, every Saturday, they would go with a bike and a folding table, and they would sell cannoli that they filled in the moment and sfogliatelli, which they made, which were incredible. Like the best cannoli and sfogliatelli I've ever had in my life by a long shot. And they would sell off of a bike outside of Latente. And I was sort of blown away by the community they had generated. Every Saturday, the same people would come, and there'd be a line, and people sort of, it was like this social happening, this gathering of people, and it really created this beautiful atmosphere. And after seeing what they were doing, at one point I sort of worked up the courage to ask them if they'd be willing to lend me their bike for me to try and do the same thing with bagels. When they said yes, I asked Latente if they'd be willing to let me do the same thing with bagels. on a different day of the week. And they said yes. And so then I started figuring out a cream cheese recipe. And I started making the cream cheese because that was sort of the other thing that was you couldn't really get here. And so then once I figured out how to make the cream cheese, I started going every Sunday. I would wake up at like 4 o'clock in my house, bake the bagels, pack up everything into bags and these like sort of styrofoam coolers, and take them on the bus to Palermo, where I would go to my friend's house, get their bike, load it up with the bagels and salmon and the folding table, and go to La Tente. And when I first started, I was going at 10 a.m., which we can get into later why that quickly changed to being later in the day. But I started going every Sunday. And at first it was kind of slow, and then it kind of built, and then word sort of got around. Initially, it was definitely like people from the U.S. living in Palermo who missed bagels, and then that kind of sort of spread out. So once you have a little bit of a line, people get curious, and it started to spread out to Argentines, and it kind of just took off from there. That was the beginning.
Well, on behalf of people from the States and expats in general, thank you so much. So I wanted to dive into bagels just like in general. So like what makes a good bagel?
So for me, the qualities of a bagel that are kind of fundamental have to do both with texture and flavor. So a bagel has to have, for me, a very specific flavor that comes from two things. One is from the use of malt syrup in the dough and also in the cooking liquid. And the other thing that gives a bagel flavor is slow fermentation in cold, right? So a real bagel has to be made at least one day ahead of time and allowed to rise in a fridge. You can't make a bagel with fresh yeast, have it rise in the same day, and cook it and expect it to taste like a bagel, because the flavor of most breads develop slowly in cold. It's sort of the same concept with sourdough breads. Most breads that really have a lot of bread flavor, apart from breads that maybe have a lot of butter, like a brioche or something like that, that gets its flavor from fats. But something like a sourdough or a bagel, for example, develops all its flavor through the process of fermenting slowly in a cold environment. And then the second question is textural, which for me, a bagel should have, and this is where there are different opinions on exactly what the perfect bagel is, right? I'm like team dense, and there's people who are more team puffy. So I think a bagel should have relatively closed crumb and sort of not a fluffy interior. It shouldn't be chewy, the interior, but it shouldn't be like puffy and airy. It should have some real texture to it, but soft, followed by a layer of crust that is chewy. Like, it has to really be chewy. I don't believe in a bagel that's totally soft. And then ideally, to me, what really distinguishes them, this is where like very few bagels really nail it for me, is outside of the chewy layer, there should be a very thin, crispy layer. And so what processes give you that sort of texture of a soft interior and a chewy exterior is the boiling. That's the main difference. And it's the main thing that makes a bagel different from other breads, is that it's boiled before it's baked. If a bagel isn't boiled, it's not a bagel, it's bread. And that's the main difference, that a lot of, when you try these bagels in places and you say, this isn't a bagel, this is just like bread with a hole in it, it's because it hasn't been boiled.
Got it. Okay. So what is the process of making a bagel?
So the way we make the bagels at Sheikob's starts with two types of pre-ferment. So we have a sourdough starter, which is the same sourdough starter that I've been using since those first trials 10 years ago on the bike.
Wow.
And that just gets fed every day before you're ready to use it. And then we have a different type of pre-ferment called a poolish, which is basically like a fresh sourdough starter, in the sense you use it's a very little bit of yeast in a lot of flour and water, and you mix that the day before, a day ahead of time, and it gives time. Basically what happens is the yeast reproduces. It starts eating and reproducing and eating and reproducing and eating and reproducing. And so it creates, again, like a different flavor from just using a bunch of fresh yeast in the moment. So day one of us making bagels is making the poolish and feeding the sourdough starter. That goes into a fridge and they spend all night fermenting. And the next day, those two pre-ferments are mixed with more flour, malt syrup, salt, sugar, and a little bit more water needed. That dough is rested, and then we cut it and roll it into form. And from there, those bagels that have been rolled into form go back into the fridge for another night. And so they spend all night rising. So all told, it's a 3-day process. So on the third day, we take the bagels out of the fridge, depending on the time of year and how cold it was. And we let them proof a little bit out of the fridge. And then they go into boiling water mixed with malt syrup. Short period of time. It's only about a minute on each side because they float. So you put them face down, they float in the boiling water, you flip them, you take them out. While they're still wet from the boil, you put them into seeds. So that's what actually sticks seeds to a bagel is the water from the boiling process. You don't paint it with egg or anything like that. It just comes out of the boiling water, and while it's still wet, it goes right into seeds. And from there, they go on to, we just use trays. We don't actually use, like the really, really traditional way of cooking bagels is on wooden planks covered in wet burlap. There are these long sort of 2x4s that have been wrapped in burlap, and they hose them down, and the bagels cook on that. In my experience, honestly, we've been able to achieve a texture of bagel that I think is as good without it. I don't feel much difference. But so we just cook them off on oven trays, and that's the process.
Wow. So I've seen the wooden planks before, but I didn't know they were wrapped in burlap. Do you know why that is? Does that give it more flavor or something? Or like, is it like a traditional?
It's just a way to retain moisture, right? Because the idea is that you want them sitting on a wet surface, so the burlap is like releasing steam as they're cooking.
Got it.
Usually halfway through cooking, they'll get flipped. In our case, when it's in an oven on trays, you don't flip them.
And how long are they baked for?
About 20 minutes.
Oh, okay. Got it.
You're not planning on opening a bagel shop, are you?
No, I'm not. That sounds like way too much work. Very happy to eat your delicious bagels. Okay, that's really cool. And so what sets apart New York bagels, or what people say sets them apart, is the water. Do you find that to be true?
No. People always say that, and so it's a question I get asked a lot. And I've sort of come to the analogy that, to me, saying you can only make a good bagel with New York water would sort of be like a pianist saying they only play on Steinway pianos. Like, maybe at the absolute highest level of bagel making, if you're doing everything else right, it might make a difference, the water you're using. But there's so many steps in between that you can get wrong that I think are much more important. I should clarify that I've only ever made bagels in New York City, in Buenos Aires, and twice in Massachusetts on vacation. So I'm not speaking from, it's not like I've gone all over the world checking how, if I use this water or that water, it really doesn't work. In those 3 places, my bagels have come out the same. I haven't noticed a difference based on the water.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, and I mean, I think that is a really interesting analogy. Do you ever do like Montreal style bagels?
I've made them for myself sort of just out of curiosity and fun, but no, in the shop we don't really ever do them.
And what's the difference between like a New York style and a Montreal style bagel?
So there are a few differences. For starters, a Montreal bagel does not have any salt in the dough, so they tend to be sweeter. And in my experience, they have a little bit less flavor because I feel when I eat a Montreal bagel that lack of salt. The second main difference is that Montreal bagels use honey in place of malt syrup. So in the dough and the boiling water, they put honey and not malt syrup. And then the third difference is that Montreal bagels, strictly speaking, have to be baked in wood fire ovens, whereas New York bagels are traditionally cooked in gas ovens. Then there's the fourth and sort of most obvious difference is the shape. So New York bagel is much thicker with a smaller hole, which lends itself much more to a sandwich format, whereas a Montreal bagel is very thin with a very big hole. And so you'll find often in Montreal, people are more rip and dip. I also, and I don't know if this has to do with the lack of salt, but the other thing that I've experienced is that a New York bagel tends to have significantly more shelf life. They're both breads with very short shelf life. A bagel, to me, if it's more than 3 to 4 hours out of the oven, kind of needs to be toasted, or ideally just bake more bagels, like bake fresher ones. But with a Montreal bagel, it's more like half an hour out of the oven. And they
Oh,
get
wow, that short.
they get really hard and really stale almost immediately. So with
Wow.
Montreal bagels, it's either like eating them fresh out of the oven or toasting.
Oh, wow. That's crazy short. That's
Yeah.
crazy short. And are you familiar with kind of the cultural significance or kind of like where bagels come from?
Well, there are like a few different stories and no one really 100% agrees on them. But I can tell you like the little pieces that I've heard. The common consensus is that that bagels are originally from Poland. And the reason that they became a Jewish food in New York is because Jewish Polish immigrants brought them there. And they sort of flourished in the Jewish immigrant communities of the Lower East Side, but that in Poland, they're not a Jewish food. They're just a Polish food. But then that, for example, conflicts with another story that sometimes you hear, which is that the fact that bagels are boiled comes from a time when Jews in Poland were not allowed to bake bread. There was a time when like the king had decreed that Jews couldn't bake bread, and so they boiled the bread instead of baking it and got around. But that also doesn't totally make sense because bagels are boiled and then baked. So, like, I could imagine maybe they were cooking out of curiosity, bitten into a bagel that has been just boiled and not baked. It's not delicious. But maybe there is some version of a Jewish bread that was only boiled that has something to do with the eventual existence of a bagel. And then there are other stories that it's actually just a derivation of a German pretzel, and that the word is like comes from pretzel, because pretzels and bagels are sort of like cousins in that pretzels are another bread that is boiled and then baked. Soft pretzels, right? So the main difference there is that a pretzel dough will usually have some sort of it's an enriched dough, so it'll have some sort of fat in it, oil or butter, whereas a bagel does not. But like I said, these are all sort of these different stories that go around. I don't know what's true. I do know that there were bread in the shape of a ring called bagels in Poland, and then they were in New York and Montreal. And then I think bagel means stirrup in Poland, and the original bagels were a bread in the shape of a stirrup because they were made by a baker in honor of some king who was like really famous for his horse riding. And so they made him this stirrup shaped bread to celebrate victorious return to Poland after conquering I don't know what.
Huh. Oh, that one I hadn't heard before. And what about, so yeah, what about bagels kind of in New York culture? Like for you growing up in New York and stuff, how does it fit into your daily life for a New Yorker?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't eating a bagel every day, but they're always there. The availability for sure. It's like a staple food, 100%. And it was also for me always a food I associated, like there are kind of two contexts in which I would eat a bagel. One is sort of just in like the what I would consider like the mainstream New York consumption of bagels, which is like I would go to a bagel shop and I would order a bagel with cream cheese and I would eat it. And then there's like, I think the slightly more Jewish, maybe specific experience of bagels, which is that like a bagel brunch at home was very much a traditional family. Like anytime my grandparents came to visit from Washington, D.C., without fail, at some point during their trip, there would be like a Saturday or Sunday where we would go get bagels and cream cheese and lox and all the stuff apart and we would have like at 10, 11 a brunch where you put all this stuff out on a table and everyone makes their own bagels. My concept of that is that it's like that's a little bit more Jewish specific. Like that's not as common a way that other people eat bagels. Maybe I'm wrong about that. And at this point, it's probably even that form of eating bagels is maybe a little more mainstream. But that definitely felt like a part of my cultural identity. It's like the kind of the closest thing I could describe as being like culturally specific as a food experience for me.
Yeah, I'm from the Chicago area,
Uh-huh.
and I would never like go get a bagel to eat, but for kind of like sport, so like I was a swimmer growing up, and so on Fridays after swim practice, would bring bagels. And so I associated a lot with
Yeah,
like group things. And so yeah, bagels after swim practice, bagels, I feel like the day after like wedding brunches, it's just like, a ton of like bagels and coffee.
for sure.
At like office things and stuff, just like as a group thing, you always bring bagels. There's always bagels there. Yeah, just very much like a social thing and an
Yeah,
easy thing to get different flavors and to get the different cream cheeses and stuff so you can, make your own, and
that's
a
funny.
big like crowd pleaser, an easy one.
You're totally proving me wrong. You're blowing my mind. It's more mainstream, I get, than to like for the bagels and schmear separate experience. But again, that's I think because coming from New York, it's so ubiquitous to like go to a bagel shop, get a bagel with cream cheese or whatever, like getting a bagel sandwich, and that's like if you go specifically to a bagel shop. But then like at every single bodega, corner store, deli, they have like they're bad bagels, but they have bagels and like so a bacon, egg, and cheese on a bagel, like all that is like super basic, like fundamental New York diet.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and so what was it hard to figure out the cream cheese recipe? So as far as like fixins go?
Yeah, so the cream cheese recipe worked quicker than I would have expected. It's not actually that hard to make cream cheese. It's pretty straightforward. And at this point, we still make our cream cheese from scratch, although at this point it's sort of maybe out of stubbornness because at this point there are other good cream cheeses on the market that we could buy. But our intention at Sheikob's is to do as much as we can from scratch. So we cure and smoke our salmon, we cure and smoke our whitefish, we cure and cook our corned beef, we make our cream cheese from scratch. The kind of only two products that we buy pre-made is American cheese and bacon. Pretty much everything else on our menu is made in-house. And there are different reasons for it, but mostly it's fun to me. The whole project was born from this idea of like a thing that up until I tried to make them, I thought like, you don't make bagels, you buy bagels at a bagel shop. So when I made bagels and they're like, oh, these are good bagels, it became sort of a fascination with me of like, okay, all these things that you never really think about trying to make from scratch. What happens if you try and make from scratch? Maybe you can make them even better than you've ever had them before. And so it gives you control to sort of try things out and look for exactly what you want in the cream cheese and the bagel. So yeah,
Yeah, no, I love that though. So what has it been like introducing bagels to Argentina? Are there specific flavors that Argentines like more than in the States? Have you had to adapt a lot to the Argentine palate? How has that been?
yeah. So, I mean, the thing I mentioned earlier, the biggest difference from the get was that Argentines do not eat savory breakfast. It's like not culturally a thing. That was the first thing I realized when I started going out on the bike. I would get there at 10 a.m. on Sunday saying, okay, I'm selling bagels. So set up at 10 a.m., like Sunday brunch. And the looks I would get from Argentines walking by when they realized that what I was offering them was a smoked salmon sandwich at 10:30 in the morning, it was like repulsion. They were like offended by the idea that you would eat something like that at that hour. And since then, it has remained true. And the shop has been open 7 years. From the time I started the bike, it's been about 10. It's a lunch food. We open for breakfast because I want it to be available. And we do primarily business with expats and tourists up until 12:30. But the vast majority of our business is lunch. So that was like the number one difference. The second thing that I ran into was the expectation to have pastrami. which I hadn't anticipated. But as soon as we opened up the shop, people started
You
coming.
mean from Argentines or from?
Argentines
Oh,
come in and they'd say, "Why don't you have pastrami?" And I would say, "Because we're a bagel shop and you don't eat pastrami on a bagel. We're not a Jewish deli. We're a bagel shop. And you eat pastrami on thinly sliced rye bread." And people would be like offended. And for a while, I was pretty stubborn about it. And eventually, I found sort of a loophole / I caved, depending on how you want to look at it, which was I discovered something I did not know about. I had always known that there was a bagel culture in London, right? On Brick Lane, there's sort of these historic bagel shops. I think the most well-known is called Bagel Bake. And they're famous for being open like 24 hours. And they're a classic, like after a night of clubbing, you go get a bagel in London, which is funny. It's like but what they sell primarily is what they call a salt beef sandwich on a bagel. Salt beef is what in the States we would call corned beef. Like not corned beef from a can, but like the corned beef like you get at a Jewish deli, which is exactly the same thing as pastrami, with the only difference that at the end, instead of covering it in pepper and smoking it, you boil it. And I said, oh, there is a bagel culture that eats meat sandwiches. Cool. So we started making corned beef. And now it's a little bit to my chagrin, probably like our second or third best-selling item because people love it. People come in. I mean, I think the thing is people think New York Jewish food, he must have pastrami. The number one question I get about New York is like, have you been to Katz's? Oh, Katz's is so great. I love Katz's, which is, I don't know if you're familiar. It's like
yeah.
People are crazy about Katz's here. So yeah, there's like this thing they think, oh, I'm going to a New York Jewish place. I'm going to eat pastrami. So that was a surprise and that I had to like do a little pivot on.
Okay, I was not expecting that. That is so interesting.
Yeah. So I'd say those are like the two biggest things I had to sort of reconceive. And then the third thing, which is just like I will never change. I'm 100% fully set in my ways. And it's just like a dividing line of, okay, our product is not for some people, is chewiness. A lot of Argentines don't really know what to expect from a bagel. They have had a lot of bagels that are very, very soft, sort of like, like Lender's style supermarket bagels. And so they bite into one of our bagels and they're like, this is hard. They're like, this bread must be 2 days old, or like, this is stale. And I admit I'm a fundamentalist in the sense that like, there are definitely people from the States who would say my bagel is too chewy. I'm sort of a little old school in that way. I think bagels used to be chewier and they've over the years become puffier and breadier and softer. And I believe that a bagel like should be a little bit hard to eat. Like just a little bit. Like it should smush out when you like bite into it. Like it should be a little messy and it should like kind of have to pull on it, especially if it hasn't come immediately out of the oven. Oh, there's one last one which got me into some heat. Argentines typically associate, for some reason, a smoked salmon bagel with having arugula on it, which I think is something that maybe like came from, again, like the bagel where it would appear on menus would be like at sort of bougie brunch places, like late 90s, early 2000s, like everywhere, not just in Argentina, but like putting arugula on something was like, you just did it just because. And so somehow like the image of a smoked salmon bagel in Argentina was it has cream cheese, smoked salmon, and arugula. And so initially a lot of people would be like, give me smoked salmon and arugula bagel. I'm like, we don't have arugula. And at one point, a person wrote to us on Instagram asking, how much is your bagel with salmon and arugula? And I wrote back to them like, this is how much our smoked salmon bagel is. It has red onions and capers. We actually don't put arugula on ours. And then I gave this sort of explanation. It was all like really buena onda, honestly. And the person, like, we had a conversation where I was like, just so you know, like, I don't know where this arugula thing came from. But like in the States, like if you're going to put something on a salmon bagel, typically it's like red onion and capers, maybe some tomato. And it was all like, ha ha ha, really cool. And I was like, hey, would you mind if I screenshotted this and put it up on our story? Like, as we did it, like we shared it as a story to be like, hey guys, look, learning moment. We don't put arugula like on our bagel. And in retrospect, out of context, I could see how it seemed maybe like we were like making fun of this person and being a little stupid Nazi.
Okay, yeah.
Nazis like, we don't put arugula on our bagels. It was not the intention. It wasn't the tenor of our conversation. But some guy on Twitter who he had competed on an amateur cooking show. Where like amateur people go on and do like a series long competition. And for that reason, he had like 60,000 followers on Twitter. And he wrote this super aggressive tweet where he took a screenshot. He was like, this damn American making fun of someone who puts money in his pocket. I'd rather eat dirt than have anything to do with him. He was like, this bald American, like brief. And for a minute, I thought like, oh my God, like my life is ruined. Like, because it went super viral on Twitter for 12 hours. It had like
Wow.
1,000, like 10,000 retweets and all these comments. And the comments were crazy. Like lots of bald phobia. Like people just went off on like bald
Oh my
this,
God.
bald that, and blah, blah, blah. A ton of anti-Semitism. That's not really as surprising. Really fun because it like went all the way, it swung the whole gamut from like this American colonizer to this like left-wing Jewish socialist and everything in between. And like the one post we had on Instagram that day got like 8 million comments of just tons of hate comments. And I was like, oh, wow, this is a problem. And then literally the next day, it was just like it was over. And I was like, back to regular programming.
That's
or
crazy.
the Twitterverse found something else to be mad about. But that was a funny experience that stemmed out of a difference about how we eat bagels. So careful what you say about arugula in public.
People love their arugula.
People are serious about arugula.
Oh my God, that's really stressful. I would have been like pooping my pants and crying for those 12 hours.
Yeah, it was bad. I was not in a good shape during those 12 hours either. It was, at first I thought it was really funny, and I was like reading the comments, and then I was like, this is awful. I don't, all these strangers hate me.
Yeah, that's horrible. Well, I'm glad that you made it through.
Thank you.
And now everybody knows, right?
Yeah, message has been delivered.
Yeah. So what's your favorite type of bagel and like way to eat it?
I would say my go-to bagel is a poppy seed bagel with scallion cream cheese and tomato. You look so surprised.
Okay.
The face you made. Poppy seed.
No, I don't know. I guess that's normal. Poppy seed though.
Yeah, poppy seed is my favorite. Poppy seed doesn't get a lot of love. It's certainly, I think it's an underappreciated bagel. I mean, I get it. It gets in your teeth. That's an issue. There's no question it gets in your teeth. But it is like one of the OG bagels. Like bagels originally were plain sesame, poppy, and salt. I think then maybe they spread out to like onion and garlic. And then from there, everything was born. But I love an everything bagel too. Everything and poppy are sort of my alternating go-tos. And yeah, for like my classic bagel order, my favorite is just scallion cream cheese and a good tomato. I'm also a big fan of smoked whitefish. If you have to choose between smoked salmon and whitefish salad, I'm definitely all day going whitefish salad. And nowadays in the shop, to be honest, it's like I'm pretty over bagels. It's like I don't really want to eat them that often. But what I can say is that the BLT has somehow retained its allure, in that the BLT is the only bagel that still every single time someone orders one and I prepare one, I'm like, I would eat that. I'm like, I could go for a BLT right now. When I see a BLT, I'm like, that looks good.
I mean, it's classic for a reason. And do you guys do like egg salad? I know that's a big one in New York.
Egg salad. We do, in terms of salads, really, we only do smoked whitefish salad. Again, because like egg salad, that's the type of thing that, for example, a little bit being in Argentina dictates our menu. Because I just like don't think
Fair.
I could sell enough egg salad to not be like throwing out a pound.
Yeah, they love their Russian salad though.
It's
And
true. It's true. No, they're not. It's not a mayonnaise phobic country at all. For sure not. Maybe a special one of these days. We'll have to do a egg salad special.
I do love seeing so like I
I'm sorry, what's your bagel order?
well, it's hard because it depends on my mood. I do like a good like egg sandwich, and so it kind of depends on the place.
Mm-hmm.
And then I like it on a salt bagel because I have ruined my palate putting too much salt in my food. And so if I'm like taking it away and I know I'm not gonna have salt, then I get the salt bagel, and then there's enough salt on the sandwich. If it's just a regular bagel, I never know what to do because I also like everything bagels, but I hate fennel. And so
Mm-hmm.
it like makes me so sad, and it like ruins the bite when I get the bite of like fennel in the bite.
Yeah.
And so I usually can't do everything. Yeah, basically I don't know. And it stresses me out. But like onion, I like a good onion and garlic, and then the cream cheese also. But it pretty much as savory as you can go. I don't like the blueberries. I don't like the fruit stuff. Definitely savory. But yeah, I guess more egg sandwich with like a either avocado or like spinach and cheese. I don't know. I
Mm-hmm.
like it all. I like it all. Oh, I was gonna say what I really like about your Instagram is you do the specials, and I've also seen like I know yeah, the cheesecake is also super popular. It looks
Yeah.
amazing. So yeah, you guys switch it up a lot and kind of do special things, and there's always something new and exciting going on, which I really love.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a labor of love. We always sort of would occasionally do some special things like when we wanted to. And about, oh boy, I wonder, it's probably like at this point almost 3 years ago that we committed to doing a sandwich special and a cheesecake special every weekend. So we do every weekend, we do like Friday through Sunday, a special sandwich and a special cheesecake. And for a long time, the special sandwich was always a bagel. And then at one point, we're like, what if we made other bread? And we did it. We started making other kinds of bread for different kinds of sandwiches. Because the reality is that a bagel is definitely not the best bread for a lot of sandwiches. There are a lot of sandwiches that just like aren't good on a bagel. So we start doing that, and at this point it's the most fun we have, and it helps because it also for the kitchen staff, like it keeps things fresh. We get to play around, we get to do things instead of just being like cutting salmon, making cream cheese, cutting salmon, making cream cheese. Like mix it up a little bit, and yeah, we have fun with it.
And do you have any good like travel tips for people who are going to New York, and as well maybe like a few of your top bagel places in New York?
Yeah, sure. Travel tips. I'm trying to think things I really love to do in New York. I mean, to me, at this point, my favorite thing to do in New York is kind of just walk around.
Any like favorite neighborhoods or
Favorite
something?
neighborhoods. I really love like the North Woods of Central Park. I feel like is a section of Central Park that gets slept on that is gorgeous. So it's like the west side of the park, kind of between 100th and 110th. There's like a pond, and then you walk down some stairs, and underneath a like bridge that looks like there's going to be a troll that lives underneath it. And then you're in these woods that are like woods. It feels like you're in the middle of the woods. It's very popular with birders because there are a lot of birds there, but it's also just like a part of the park that really feels like you've gotten out of the city. It's quiet. There's a lot of nature. So North Woods, I recommend big time. And Coney Island is a must. If you haven't been to Coney Island, go to Coney Island. My mom's from Brighton Beach, so I grew up like going every year to Coney Island, but I love Coney Island. And to this day, the Cyclone is the best roller coaster in the world. I will not hear any discussion about it. I like whatever you can do with German engineering and steel and thousands of feet in the air and whatever, it's still not as fun as the Cyclone. Go on the Cyclone, get a Nathan's hot dog.
I'm going to New York this summer, so I'll have to, and I haven't been to Coney Island yet, so I'll have to check it out.
Check it out, and also take the time to walk over to Brighton Beach, which is like the Russian neighbor. Like when my mom was growing up, it was like a kind of like a Jewish working class neighborhood, and now it's like full Russian. It's getting its shine because it was like Anora takes place there, Anora. It's all
Oh,
based
okay.
basically in Brighton Beach. Like she's
Well, I'm learning Russian right now, and so by the time we hit
there. You
August, that'll be
go. You can
perfect.
go order some stuff. And my favorite bagel, I would say at this point, is probably the Bagel Hole in Park Slope.
Never been there.
RIP Absolute. That was like a crushing blow to Upper
Wait, it's not open anymore?
Absolute is done, closed this year. Yeah,
Did it?
it's over. Yeah,
Oh, I
Absolute
didn't know
Bagel
that.
is gone. Yeah,
Oh my God, thank God I went last time I was there.
yeah, it's sad. So as an Upper West Sider, it's rough because Upper West Side is now like I cannot name a good bagel place on the Upper West Side, which is crazy. But yeah, I would say for sure check out the Bagel Hole. In terms of new school bagels, Apollo, which is getting a lot of shine, like a lot of hype, is I think worth the hype. It's delicious. It's like a different kind of new school style of bagel. It's sourdough. They do them like open face, kind of fancy looking, and they've got big lines. And outside of bagels, I love Winsun. Winsun's one of my favorite restaurants in the city. Also, there's this place relatively new that was opened by one of the guys from Winsun called Chino Grande, which is a Chino Latino restaurant in Williamsburg. And it's also a karaoke bar. And it's delicious and a lot of fun. So for sure, I would recommend Chino Grande. Rolo's is another restaurant I like a lot. Really good. A little more upscale, but really, really, really good. That's in Ridgewood.
Okay, yeah, those are great. Thank you.
Yeah.
And there's one question that I ask everybody that
Ooh.
comes on, and that is, what would your last meal be?
That is really difficult. It changes. It might be a New York slice of pizza. Either that or some really good Chinese food. Maybe just like a yupo mien, like some kind of like good chewy noodles, or like I never know how to say this properly, like the lamb one. It's like lasagna. There's like a I think it's more from like the Northwest, and it's like a cumin lamb noodle.
Oh, is it like a Szechuan dish?
It's like up near Manchuria vibes, where it's like a lot of cumin and lamb and noodles, and they don't really have rice. It's more like that type of stuff. That's like one of my favorite foods. So maybe that.
Awesome.
But then also like potentially General Tso's chicken. Like there's a
I mean, yeah, fair. Orange chicken from Panda Express.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I can't answer that question. But right now in this moment, my answer would either be a New York slice of pizza or some good Chinese.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Fair enough. I know it's a
Do you
tough
have like
question.
an answer?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Mine would be Napolitana pizza, which luckily there is an abundance of good Napo pizza here.
Yeah,
And so it would just be like a butt ton of vegetables and a huge whole giant thing of burrata on top. And then you open it. Oh, yeah.
amazing.
So yeah. It used to be Chili's fajitas, the fajita trio.
I
because
was,
they're really good.
a burrito is definitely in the like top 5 rotation of what I would answer that question for sure.
Yeah, I always want a burrito. There's something about the juices in the Chili's fajita trio is like so good. And so I know that's like so like basic, something from the Chili's menu, but I am well, I've changed it now, so it's fine. I'm a little more sophisticated. But yeah. So Jake, how can people find you, come eat bagels, and connect with you?
So look us up. We're on Instagram, Sheikob's Bagels, which is SHEIKOBS Bagels. But honestly, if you just Google Bagels Buenos Aires, which is easier to remember, you'll find us. Come check us out. Come eat a bagel. Come eat a weekend special. We've got 2 shops now. So there's one in Palermo, and there's another in Las Cañitas, and we're about to have a 3rd location very, very, very soon in Núñez on Montañeses and Ugarte, and that's an exclusive. We haven't told anyone about that. I don't know when this is coming out, but it's like,
oh my God,
any moment, late March maybe.
Oh my God, that's so exciting. Yeah, I had no idea. That is very exciting. I live in Belgrano.
There you go. It's gonna be right there.
I also used to live in Nunez, and so that would have been so dangerous for me. That's very exciting. Okay, well, great. Yeah, and I'm gonna link all that in the show notes and stuff as well.
Amazing.
So people can easily find stuff, and you'll definitely be seeing me because now I have lots of ganas to eat bagels.
Thank you so much, Kate. Thanks for having me on.
I just want to take another moment to say thank you again for being a part of this journey. Your support means the world, and it's because of you that I get to keep sharing these incredible food stories. If you love the show, one of the best ways to help it grow is by sharing it. Tell a friend, post about it, leave a review. The more people who discover this podcast, the more cultures and cuisines we can explore together. And if you're ever in Buenos Aires, don't miss out on Sheikob's Bagels. Jake has truly mastered the art of a great bagel, and I can confirm they are really, really, really delicious. So here's to another year of food, culture, and adventure, and thank you so much for being here. Bye. Did you love this episode and are inspired to pack your bags? I offer 30-minute consultation calls for select destinations to give you the confidence in planning your international trip. I can help you with your itinerary, logistics, cultural norms, and so much more. It's an easy and affordable way to get professional insights while still planning your own adventure. Check out the link in the description to book or head to tastytrailstravel.com to learn more. Bye.